will call the meeting to order. Stand for the pledge.
To the flag, United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
All right, good evening. Board President to advise members of the audience that they may address the board regarding agenda items after the superintendent's report. Only those members whose names and addresses are listed on the sign-in sheet available prior to the start of the meeting will be recognized during new business. The chairperson will limit discussion of any item by the public to 3 minutes in order for the board to expeditiously conduct its business. Mr. Dolan, the superintendent report.
Oh, thank you, President Carney. Good evening, everyone. I just have a few things to go over. First and foremost, I would like to thank everybody for their patience as we are rolling out our end-of-the-year calendars. You know, ladies and gentlemen, especially at the secondary and up at the high school level, there's so much activity right now, you know, and finding days to do wonderful things is a bit of a challenge, and we're just going to ask everybody to be flexible. I will say I've been deluged with emails and phone calls. A lot of people have a lot of good ideas. I will caution you that we are a school and we do have to keep our eye on the academic ball also. I've been extremely proud of the students and the staff, you know, and trying to spend a little more time in the buildings, you know, this week and over the next couple of weeks. But they are, you know, working hard at, you know, wearing their masks, being safe. You know, I want to applaud everybody for that. We do have challenges ahead. As we've said, May 3rd is the day that we have just, you know, we've decreed that we're going to have everyone back in school unless you have a medical. If we don't have your medical note by April 20th, we are just going to assume that you're coming back May 3rd. We will put you in the computer. We will have more information at next week's board meeting as to how instruction is going to proceed. You know, and again, I thank you for your patience. But one of the things that we are focusing on is next year, and we are planning on opening school in a normal fashion. I'm sure that there will be masks or, you know, some you know, safety protocols in place, but we continue to see the world moving slowly but surely into a better place. So, you know, again, I appreciate your patience. You know, and I wish I could give you all, you know, details now. But as you can see, the guidelines from the CDC, from the state, from the Department of Health, they don't always line up, and they are evolving. But I just want to remind everybody, if you do not have a medical note submitted to Mr. Stanton's office, we'll you know, send out the information again tomorrow. And my office, the notification, the expectation is you will be back in school on May 3rd. And we are looking forward to that. And again, I thank everyone who's been working hard to make this work. I am going to turn the microphone over to Mr. Harrison in a second. He's going to do his third and final budget presentation. I want to thank him in advance for all the work he's done. I don't want to steal his thunder, but you're hearing an awful lot about, you know, this money that's coming. And, you know, I've been doing this a long time. I've been promised, you know, and told that money was coming from both Albany and Washington, and I'm still waiting for some of it, to be quite honest with you. I want to caution you that what we're doing right now is preparing for next year, you know, for next school year, but then the following school year. And if we're getting an infusion of federal money this year, we do not expect to see that again next year. You know, we believe we're going to start next year, you know, approximately $3.5 to $4 million in the hole. But I give Mr. Harrison a lot of credit. I think we have saved for the rainy day, and we will be prepared for it. You're hearing a lot of talk about foundation aid. Mr. Harrison's going to show you an excellent chart tonight that shows you that we are at the bottom, because East Islip for the last several years has actually, you know, and we're overfunded in the area of financial aid because our enrollment has declined so much. But the state does have a hold harmless for us. So, I ask you to please pay careful attention to Mr. Harrison's presentation, and for those people that aren't watching or listening, I hope they go online and look at it. I think what Mr. Harrison and Mr. Manzo and Dr. Bells and the Board of Education have done over the last 6 years has been that they've been fiscally responsible. It looks like coming out of the gate, your school taxes, and I'm just talking about your school taxes this year, are going to be approximately, if the budget passes, approximately what they were in 2014. And if you come and look at the work that's been done up here on the campus, both on the academic and facility side, I think that's something that this Board of Education and Mr. Harrison, Mr. Manzo, and Dr. Bell should be very proud of. And I want to leave you with one last thing. Mr. Manzo will be sending a letter out regarding end-of-the-year testing, Regents exams, and the like. There's an awful lot of confusing things out there. But ask yourself this. Students, you're home, you're working, you're reading, you're studying. Don't be afraid to take a test that can't hurt you. Don't be afraid to take a test that you can challenge yourself to see just how well you've studied, just how well you've been able to learn, just what you've been able to muscle through during really tough times. I'm really looking forward to the summer where I think collectively this community can look back and say, wow, that COVID-19, that was a tough year. It's been a long year, it's been a stressful year, but I do believe we're going to come out stronger and better than ever. So, we're encouraging people, we're encouraging our young people to continue to read, to continue to write, study, do your schoolwork. The fourth quarter is always important. You got to buckle down, do the best you can, and, take those end-of-the-year tests, but take them as a challenge. They're not for someone else, not to judge you against other people, but judge yourself against yourself. Work hard and do the best you can. And then, then you can look back and reflect. If you did a good job, you pat yourself on the back. If you wish you had a higher grade, reflect and try to figure out how you can, change your study habits to get better. That's what we're here to do, get better. Challenges, tests are nothing to be afraid of, and it's something to embrace to make yourself better. So with that, I please pay careful attention to Mr. Harrison's presentation, because I think he's done an excellent job over the last 6 years of being financially responsible, fiscally responsible, and allowing this district to move ahead in a number of ways. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Harrison.
Thank you. I'd like to once again thank the Board of Education, Superintendent, my colleagues, and staff for all the support during the budget process. Today we're giving the budget presentation number 3. A lot of the information you'll see is the same as in previous presentations. However, there are some important differences based upon the approved state budget. In addition, the agenda is the same as previously, but we've added the impact of what is called the contingent budget. So in addition to reviewing the revenue and the expenditures, we'll talk a little bit about contingent budget. So I hope everyone has a copy of the presentation. I know the folks at home have this on their screens as well, so I do apologize, however, due to the smallness of the presentation. As Mr. Dolan indicated, we have a state budget. This is the impact of the state budget on the East Islip School District. I've highlighted the foundation aid row, and you see that initially in the executive budget it was not going up at all, but now under the past budget it's going up by 2%, or $536,000. The reason it's highlighted is because the district ranks among the lowest in the state in the amount of the increase going into next year. And that's going to stay the same as we go into our future years, because, as Mr. Dolan indicated, the district is looked at as being overfunded. So while you're seeing large increases in districts that are in higher need and higher poverty rates, we're considered average need district, and therefore whenever there's an increase to foundation aid, we're going to get the lowest tier increase, and here it's 2%. Another important change in the approved budget versus the governor's budget is that services aid, which was grouping 11 different aid categories, was rejected. That proposal was rejected by the legislature, and those individual aid categories are surviving going into future years. One thing I'd like to point out, transportation aid, which looks like it's going up $338,000, but that's if we spend our whole budget, which we don't normally do. We get close, but we don't always get to the full budget. But one of the provisions in the approved budget is that expenditures from March 16th through May 7th are now approved for state aid. We don't yet know about the repercussions from May 8th to the end of the school year, but at least we know that state aid is going to be paid on expenditures we made from the middle of March to May 7th. In addition, in the approved budget, you'll notice that UPK expenditures are going up by $415,000. So that's additional monies that has been made available to the districts across the state to fund full-day UPK program for 4-year-olds. The increase is equivalent to 77 full-day slots in East Islip. That's in addition to the money we've received in the past. But also note that that's not part of the general fund budget being presented tonight. That's in the special aid fund. In addition, there are increases for excess cost aid for both public and private students. So while it looks like it is an increase in aid, which it is, we're actually spending more money in those categories, and that's why we're getting more aid. So to fund the budgets of the school districts, the state is relying on $12.6 billion infusion in federal monies. So once those monies are no longer available, that cliff exists, and that's a potential pitfall in the future. So I want to just back up the point Mr. Dolan made a little bit earlier about the financial cliff. So in supporting the budgets across the state, $12.6 billion in federal monies were used. So overall, right now the budget stands to increase by 4.53% on the state aid side. Again, that's including things that are not in the general fund budget, so the number's a little bit lower. And in addition, our allocation of stimulus money from the federal government, where we're going to receive the second and third rounds. The second round is $3.2 million, and the third round is $1.9 million. And again, that's money outside of the general fund budget. It's going to be managed in the special aid fund. So this chart here shows the 673 school districts across the state and the percentage increases that were built into the approved budget. So what you have, for instance, those districts that are getting 2%, there's 32 of them. And East Islip is one of those 32 school districts. However, if you go to the 3% range, there's over 211 school districts getting 3%. So what you're seeing to the right is those school districts that are not yet fully funded in foundation aid. And just to give you a quick little history, back in 2007, they came up with this concept of foundation aid to fully fund all school districts. So that formula ran for 2 years, and then because of difficulties at the state level, that stopped and the foundation formula was frozen, meaning that districts that were not yet funded fully have yet to be funded. So in this budget, there are catch-up provisions that are going to help catch up these districts to where they should be. And just because that is written into law through the budget, there's been instances over the past 14 years where the formula has been frozen because of difficulties at the state level. But this is a good graph that shows you just how our income, our ability to attract additional income going into the future is limited, both not only on the property tax side, but now is on the state aid side as well. So we still have this graph in the presentation because there is that potential of the fiscal cliff, and this is just to show you how many years it takes to recover if a fiscal cliff presents itself again. The tax cap calculation, there's been no changes here. It's reflecting a 1.5% increase, which is what's used to support the second draft of the budget being presented tonight. And this is one of the other charts that's been included in previous presentation. And again, supporting next year's budget is a 1.5% tax levy increase. So I'm going to flip through this. We've seen this before. What I've added to this screen here is that if we look at our proposed tax levy for next year as compared to where it would have been if we went to the cap in all the years since the cap was instituted, we're right now 11% below the levy we could have been at if we went to the cap in each year. And this is another illustration which shows that it would take approximately 6 years to recoup that 11%. As Mr. Dolan indicated, the proposed tax rate for 21-22 is about the same level of 2014-15, and this is not considering the tax credit that's part of the budget going into next year. We don't yet have all the details, but if you pay taxes in excess of 6% of your gross income, and your income is between $75,000 and $250,000, $75,000 and $250,000, there's a scaled tax credit that is available. And again, I don't have details right now to share how that impacts the average homeowner, but chances are that it could certainly take care of the tax increase going into next year. So this chart has changed. This is the revenue and reserve portion of the budget that's funding the expenditures, and the biggest change has been on the state aid side, where it now represents 33% of the budget. And with that influx of funding, the reserve spending is less at 4% than what it was in a previous budget draft, number one. Again, we have the listing of the accomplishments and initiatives. The changes are what I'll highlight at this point. We have in the budget draft number 2, we have a librarian at the elementary school. We have increased technology support in terms of staffing. And also we have an initiative to provide additional Wi-Fi for the outdoor locations throughout the district. So the same chart that we've had in previous packages just changed for those 3 items I mentioned. The salary and benefits portion of the budget is going up 1.49%, or $1.3 million. We have the changes in the staffing regarding the step schedules that some of the staff are on. We also built in retirements, and also those extra positions that I talked about with the librarian. And I believe there's a STEAM teacher as well in the budget. So all that's incorporated here. We do have relatively small increases on the TRS pension contributions the district has to make, as well as an increase on the ERS side. We benefited a bit by lower health insurance rates, and that all culminates into a 1.49% increase. The remaining part of the budget is going down by 2.33%. That's due to decreases in transfers to capital, and also we have we no longer have to repay the state for the building aid overpayment that we've been doing for the past 5 years. On the equipment side, we have decreases in technology spending because of our spending in this school year, and also some decreases in the buildings and grounds area. So there's not going to be much change here on these next 2 graphs from what you've seen in the past. Salary and benefits is roughly 73% of our budget. and all the remaining expenditures are about 26%, totaling 100%. So should either the first draft should the adopted budget be defeated the first time, and if the board decides to put it up a second time, and if the budget's defeated, we have to go to contingency. The board can elect to do that after the first vote, but certainly we have the ability to go to two different votes. And what has to happen through the contingent process is that we only can include those expenses that are absolutely necessary to operate and maintain the educational programs, preserve the property, and assure the health and safety of both students and staff. So things that get removed from that type of budget would be equipment expenditures, as well as student supplies. In addition, the tax levy cannot be any higher than it is in the previous school year. And then finally, there's what's called the administrative component of the budget. That can't grow any higher than it was it can't be any higher than the lowest it was in the past 2 school years. So all those things have to be adjusted when we present a contingent budget. And if we have to go to contingency, instead of having a budget of $121 million, our budget will be $119.2 million, which means there'd have to be almost $1.3 million in reduction in expenditures. And again, that's student supplies, that's equipment, and that's also certain administrative expenses would have to be removed from the budget in order to meet the rules of contingency. And so the 3-part budget, which we're required to report on, is below, and you see where the decreases are should we have to go to contingency. This chart's been adjusted for the second draft of the budget, so the only thing that's changed here, actually, I did miss a change here, and I apologize, but the budget that's being proposed is at $121,037,910, and I should have changed the appropriated fund balance from $6.7 million to $4.9 million. I'll make that change before it's posted to the website. But if you look back over the past 5 years, the average tax levy increase is at 0.72%. So the budget adoption would be next week, on next week's board meeting on Thursday. That's the last date for adoption. And there'll be one final presentation on May 4th, which is our budget hearing. And then we move on to May 18th, which is the date of the budget vote. Okay, at this time, I'd like to take any questions from the Board of Ed.
I have a question. Can you explain to me again that the state gave us an additional $1.1 million, or eventually we're gonna get that? That's from the state. Okay, so chances are we are gonna get that, right? And that money's gonna be put where?
Okay, there are 2 waves of funding that we talked about. One is 1.9 million, which is, I think, the one you're referring to, and the other one is 3.4 million. So both of those fundings are from the federal government coming through the state to the district, and that's going to be in a special aid fund. And we have over 2 to 3 years to spend those monies, but there's a grant application process we have to go through to spend those funds, and 20% of the smaller amount, the 1.9 million, has to be spent on learning loss. That's been uncovered through the COVID-19 virus. But there will be some regulations on how that money's spent. But we have a few years to spend it, and there may be some restrictions on how it's spent, but it's going to be handled outside of the general fund in the special aid fund.
And the total amount of money is again?
$5.3 million.
$5.3 million.
Yeah.
That money is gonna get to us, so we can't use that for the 21-22 budget, or we might be able to use it.
Well, it's to cover well, we don't have all the details, but we do have to go through a grant process. We have to be approved, we have to put a plan in place, and we have to spend a certain amount of that money on new programs to prevent or to mitigate learning loss.
Okay, thank you.
But Steve, that $5 million, isn't that partly offset by a reduction in state aid? Wasn't there a reduction initially in the state that the federal government is making up for?
Well, the federal government is, the state is backfilling the state budget, which trickles down to us by $12.6 billion in total for the state. So that question would be yes.
And
Yes.
Chris, if I could just add, no one's talking about the fact that there was the governor came out and said that they're worried about cash flow because of the reduction of, tax collection. We could see a 20% reduction. And as Mr. Harrison I think clearly pointed out, this money is going to be, we have to apply for it. There's a grant process. The government is going to guide us in where they want us to spend it. And you're talking about money that we're looking at roughly $4 million infusion now of federal money. But we're looking at next year where the state is going to be strapped for money still. And if we have to be very careful how we spend this money. We have to follow the guidelines, but also we don't want to see a volatile, tax condition over the next couple of years. So, as much as everybody feels good and it sounds good, until we see this money really start arriving, I would caution everybody, and I said it earlier, this board and Mr. Harrison and Dr. Bells and Mr. Manzo have prepared us for, and ironically, the weather tonight, for a rainy day. For an economic, we were worried about an economic downturn. We didn't see COVID coming. But we don't want to rush to think that we're flush with cash. We have to be prudent. We have to be careful. And I'll stand on the record of this team up here. It's not going to be an easy next couple of years, but we're prepared. And so, but let's not rush because the money has not gotten here yet. We've been promised money, but it hasn't arrived. So.
How many times did we spend the smart bond money that we never got? We've been waiting for 5 years for the smart bond money, so
Longer than 5
until
years.
it's actually deposited.
The smart bond, I believe, was passed in 2011. So thank you very much for bringing that up and, reminding me that we're still waiting for that money. So I would rather rely on the board, Mr. Harrison, Mr. Manzo, Dr. Bells, and prudent fiscal management, okay? And again, the government will come through. It's just it might not be right away, and we don't want anybody to suffer because we rushed because we thought we were flush with cash.
Mr. Harrison, one more question, please. The state auditors, there was an article about that East Islip was over the 4% rate that we were supposed to keep in surplus or something. Do you know anything about that? And how much surplus money do we have?
The state's calculation on what we're, in law, what we're able to keep in the unappropriated fund balance is 4%. Now, each year as part of the budget process, we take money out of reserves to fund the budget. So what the state has done is created their new calculation, which is not in law, that takes that money that's being appropriated, if you don't use it, adds it to the 4% and comes up with their own number. So we've been fortunate to have a surplus in previous years, not needing to use the reserves that we put forth into the budget. And they've added the two numbers, the 4% plus the unused appropriated fund balance, and that's how they come to that number. We're within statutory limits because we have the 4%. We have surplus in the neighborhood of $26 million, which is no surprise to the board because we've in the past approved a capital reserve that could fund $2 million a year up to $20 million a year. So we're handling the surplus in an efficient and prudent way, and a lot of that money is earmarked for specific expenditures that will keep the future tax rates down.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Steve, don't we have to operate at a surplus every year by law?
You can't overspend your budget, but certainly you can have deficits. And hopefully there are funds in place to cure that deficit, but districts do have deficits. You can't overspend your budget, but you can have more expenditures than revenue. And that's when you draw down any reserves.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Harrison. And back to you, President Carney.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Harrison. Thank you, Mr. Dolan. At this point, we'll open up to public comments on agenda items only. Do you have any comment? No? Certified personnel? Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education approves the resignations, terminations, leave of absence, position abolitions, employment appointments, tenure appointments, and salary changes in accordance with applicable provisions of education law and civil service law as cited in the certified personnel attachment. Get a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Non-certified personnel, be it resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education approves the resignations, terminations, leave of absence, position abolition, employment appointments, tenure appointments, and salary changes in accordance with applicable provisions of education law and civil service law as cited in the non-certified personnel attachments. Get a motion?
Motion. Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, at this portion of the meeting, are there any consent agenda items that you'd like removed? 9.1 to 9.9? No? The consent agenda passes. 9.10, appropriation changes. Be resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education approves the attached list of appropriation changes. Any motion?
Motion. Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Old business. Would anybody like to open with some old business?
Mr. Manzo, I have a question. If you could just repeat, I know we discussed it at the last meeting, just the regents and the process of taking the regents and the grading that will go into effect.
The plan is for, we're only going to be offering 4 Regents Exams this year by the state. It's going to be the English Regents Exam, the Living Environment Regents Exam, and the Earth Science and Algebra 1 Regents Exams. The plan is to provide an in-class final exam, and those areas where we are offering the Regents Exams by the state, we are going to utilize the higher of the 2 grades, whether it be the final exam or the Regents Exam grade, to apply towards the final grade. We will use the higher of the 2 exam grades, the 2 grades. With that said, the student and the parent will have the option whether or not they will record the Regents Exam grade onto the transcript. Or they can choose to have an E for exempt to be represented on the transcript.
And they would handle that through guidance, or what will be the process?
That will be through guidance. We're still working on the details on how to handle that. It will be no different than how we managed last year when we had to select the grade on how to select, on how to use the grade that will benefit the children.
Okay, thank you.
Further information that will be followed in the next few weeks.
Mr. Dolan, what's the latest with the music students, with the distancing and the,
It just this week, they did reduce to 6 feet. And again, I want to give our music teachers a shout out because, they've been lobbying for this. It's a long time overdue. And they've also been very creative in getting our, from the elementary school through the high school and middle school, getting our kids to participate. But it's still, the last one that I read was 6 feet, so.
are we moving in that, so we are moving in that direction?
Yeah. I've been saying this all along. The teachers have been kind of chomping at the bit, and they have been respectful of the rules, and they've been respectful of their colleagues' feelings, because remember, some people are a little, want to go back a little more aggressively, but, You know, they're doing everything they can to get the kids to participate, and I think they should be applauded for that. And again, you know, our goal is to get everybody back May 3rd, okay? And then start preparing to open in September as if it was 2019 September.
Okay. And what's going on with the barriers?
You know, there's still a little bit of, you know, it's not clear. The CDC is saying you don't need them, and, you know, as you said, the local folks haven't caught up with them. You know, I spent a lot of time at the high school and the middle school today, and again, I'm very proud of, you know, student body. Some people are wearing their masks with a shield. Some students are carrying a shield. I think we gave them a choice. You know, I don't want to jinx it. Things are going pretty well, so nothing has changed there, and we're waiting for further clarification and direction, you know, from Suffolk County Department of Health, because they're the ones we've been with the whole way, and we're not going to change in midstream.
So the New York State Department of Health said no longer recommends the barriers, but because Suffolk hasn't made that decision, we're just going to stay with Suffolk.
Yeah, because this has been, you know, it's been a challenge. It's been interesting. It's been a fun ride. But every time you turn around, you know, I can go on the internet and find whatever answer I want. Let's put it that way. Right now,
Let's go with the least restrictive one.
well, we're moving. Listen, you know, the hardest thing is, and I gave this example today. We took my mother and my in-laws to Disney when my kids were little, and the kids were running ahead, and our parents, you know, my wife and I are in between. Trying to keep everybody together wasn't easy, but we managed to do it and have a good trip. You know, we have to be respectful of everybody's feelings. You've got a wide variety of opinions. Trust me, I on a daily basis, people express their opinion to me very strongly. You know, our big goal right now is to have everybody back on May 3rd. All right, we will address the shields as time goes on, but like I said, I really enjoyed myself today. I spent a good amount of time in high school and the middle school, and it's looking more and more normal every day. Cafeteria is even getting a little louder. You know, kids are interacting. You know, I really enjoyed standing at the middle school outside the cafeteria as kids were waiting to rush off to class. It's looking more and more normal. So let's just...
So there's a possibility in the future that before we leave school, those barriers will be gone?
Yeah, anything's possible, Mr. Kopluck.
All right.
And just say, you know...
I know you like dates, that's why I'm just saying that.
Wait, what'd you say?
I said I know you like dates, so I'm just saying, is there a possibility?
Yep, and you know, remember this, as the weather gets warmer, the windows are going to be open more. You know, I didn't even mention, and I'll say it now, I didn't even mention graduation. You know, we're planning, you know, several different courses of action because we don't know how many people are going to be allowed. But every time I turn around, Newsday has a headline that you know, if you agree with Newsday's headline, you say it's gospel. But, you know, we've gotten several different directives on graduation. You know, you can have this many if you test, this many if you don't test. You know, that's why I keep saying, if everybody's patient, we want to keep everybody together. Not you know, it's America, everybody's got an opinion. But we are East Islip, and we're going to ride together. So whether it's the barriers, graduation, we're going to get there together. I don't want to leave anybody behind.
Old business again, I go back to the solar panels. The solar panels on the high school and middle school been hooked up yet?
Yes, excuse me, the solar panels at all three buildings here are operational for about a month or so now.
And maybe by the end of April or maybe May, we can find out how much we're saving.
Sure, I can present both the budgeted savings and also hopefully what's been saved so far.
Any elementary schools, nothing yet, or they?
Well, it's just Connecticut, and the savings are on target there, about $44,000 a year.
Thank you.
Just to piggyback what Joanne had asked earlier, if you can give the board, Mr. Manzo, the projected number of seniors that will meet graduation requirements and those that may not meet graduation requirements at this point. I know you said that it'll probably be calculated after the quarter
Right.
grades?
Currently, just doing a preliminary guesstimate, we're looking at about a 92% graduation rate for this class, the 2021 class. We have about 29 kids that are currently at jeopardy of not graduating on time. We'll have a better idea by the end of next week when the grades are actually in for the third quarter. Our teachers are working very closely with our students to make every effort and giving them every opportunity to pass.
Thank you. And then also, what is the status? I know that BOCES has offered summer school in the past, and that doesn't look like an option. What are our options if we decide to offer summer school?
At this point, we have that as a possibility for the district, doing something in district. We started that conversation this morning with the cabinet, and we are further exploring options moving forward.
Only because New York City announced that they're going to have full-day summer school, so it was kind of on the news lately. That's why, I think a few people were asking. Also, I just wanted to make a comment on the events schedule. A number of people were very excited that the event schedule was put out. I figured as soon as it was put out, people would just be happy and go about their business. The problem is with some of the events, there's so much uncertainty and so many, I guess, projected restrictions and whatnot that it's almost turning people off, to the students, turning them off. But I was so happy to see the elementary in the news, the virtual readers in the classroom with the parents reading, and we have so many pivots that going on academically. Maybe if we can get an update at the next board meeting on how we've done untraditional things that were, did traditional things in an untraditional way. I think that would be a nice way for us to look at it. Obviously not next week at the workshop, but maybe at the May board meeting. And also, I realize we haven't been able to recognize anyone for the entire year for their accomplishments, but I'm hoping that come May or June, we'll be able to bring in those outstanding students at the high school.
We are working on that.
Is that our plan?
We are working on that, yes.
We're hoping to move the meeting over to the high school. And Jess, she touched on something, and this is what I would say to the student body. There is a tremendous amount of variation in people's comfort level with getting on a bus and going on a trip, or going to school, and but the memories you make with your classmates, spending time together in school, you come on, you have to make this your senior year, and we know it's quote unquote it's not normal, but it's your senior year, and we're trying to make things available so that you're comfortable doing them. I was not, I'm very happy that we're doing the prom on the property because we can have everybody there together. We're not going to a venue where we'd have to have half the class and the other half not there. You folks have been through a lot, and we want you to enjoy these last few months. And to the underclassmen, and I'll ask Mr. Manzo, to the seniors, we have 29 students in danger of not graduating. That's a 92% graduation rate. If half of those students graduate, now we're at 95, 96%. It's a combination. Buckle down, hit the books, and make memories together. And one of the things I keep saying, one of my favorite things is going out back and seeing a whole bunch of kids out there playing spike ball. We have a new complex, new fields. We have kids up here playing frisbee, can jam, spike ball on the weekends. Wearing masks. We want you on the property spending time together. We don't necessarily have to go all over the world to make special events. So, this class of 2021, we're never going to forget you because of your resilience and your, your strength and your fortitude. So, we want you to be able to gather safely, and do the things you like. And not everything we offer is going to be for everybody. And we never judge you never judge the success of an event by the number of kids there. It's the smiles on their faces and the fun you have with your friends. So, you know, we're trying to provide as many events as possible and make sure they graduate also.
Thank you. Any other old business? We'll move on to new business then.
Tomorrow night, we're streaming the game tomorrow night?
There's a game tomorrow night?
I don't know, I guess so.
Yes,
My
we-
question about the streaming though is this our permanent camera, like the one we have in the gym, or is this just a setup is it more,
No, as part of the bond, we have cameras, we have a sound system that it's not fully operational yet. We have the huddle system in the gym, and we're looking to, we're hoping to be able to live stream things next year, even if there's no pandemic.
no, that's what I meant, like,
Yeah.
I know the original plan was to have a permanent camera there. That's not the case right now. We're
No.
streaming it in another way right now.
Yeah, we should be working on that this summer.
Okay.
And it's
I
just,
wanted to-
Yeah, it was unfortunate, it really was. But I do want to thank, we had a number of parents, who were willing to do videotape, who posted. We got people to help us out.
Because the gym camera is phenomenal. The one that's really using it inside the gym.
And it sure makes me look old.
Great.
Any other new business?
I have a question, Mr. Harrison, did the school district do bus emergency drills this year or what?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Did the school district have the bus emergency drills this year?
Yes.
You said yes?
Yes.
Okay, and my other question is, at the high school, with all the new construction going on, are the new construction areas, are the fire alarms hooked up yet to those areas?
I'd have to check on that with the construction manager. I don't have an answer for you.
Okay, could you get back to me or the board on that, so that we know that they're, just in case something happens that, thank you.
Any other new business? No? Okay, public comment? Do we have any? Stephanie Chu? Okay.
Mr. Manzo, how many regions are being offered? Did you say 4?
State is federally required to offer 4 Regents exams.
Okay, which were they? Living environment, ELA, and I didn't catch the others.
Living environment, ELA, earth science, and algebra 1.
Okay, so that would be it, just 4 regions?
Those are the 4
total?
Regents exams, correct.
All right, so let's say if you're an 8th grader, taking living environment, you'd be offered that?
Correct.
Okay, so I just wanted to get an idea.
Yes.
All right, thank you, sir.
Okay.
Hey guys, I'm Tim Sassone. I'm running for school board along with 50,000 other people. I just wanted to say you've been doing a great job, and over the past 5 years, it's been pretty challenging, especially this last year, considering all the challenges that you guys had to face. So I want to thank the board and the administration for doing a good job in the face of that adversity. I think over the last 5 years, it was a $6 increase in an average $40,000 estimate of what is that, an increase in taxes? Considering all the stuff that was going on in the district and physically how differently it looks, that's a pretty commendable job. And in the face of people saying that having those high reserves it's a bit suspect, I think it proves that you made the right decision to do that, because you never know what's going to happen, considering all the PPE and stuff like that, so that's good. I actually had a question about the Regents exams, and you addressed most of it. I was a little curious about it. I know that you're taking the higher of the two, the final or the Regents exam.
Right.
I was just maybe thinking, you don't have to, obviously, you can just talk it over, but maybe you can add another little caveat in there. Since the school districts have not been given that many, I mean, they've been given cumulative exams, but as a whole, we're not really sure how the student performance is going to be because of the fact that they've been at home, they've been remote for a while, and the federal government basically said we have to do a standardized test. Is that correct, right?
Correct.
I was maybe thinking of maybe a caveat could be if they perform worse, and that might lower their average, so the average of the 4 quarters, if their final exam lowers their average, it should not count. Just out of curiosity, I know for a fact that other districts are doing that, and it's not that it's unfair, but I feel like it's untested waters for students of East Islip to kind of see how they're going to perform on a standardized test, given the fact that there were so many challenges, and there were kids at home that were remote, that were watching their siblings, and there were kids at home that were sometimes had technical issues. I believe that maybe having that in there might be a benefit, and it might not hurt the district too much, so I'm not sure if you have an answer for that. It's not really a gotcha question, but
Right.
something to consider, okay?
So, absolutely, there are ongoing conversations between the directors and the departments, so those are all the things that are being discussed, and there are many different ideas floating in different districts, so that's going to be varied opinions on that. Thank you.
Okay, that's it for public comment. Actually, Mr. Sassone made a good point. We're very lucky. Many community members have stepped up to decide to run for my seat and Mr. Montori's seat as we complete our terms this June. And it's fantastic how much community want to get involved. I just want to remind community members that they need to turn in their petitions by the 19th if they haven't done so already. And the budget vote and board election is May 18th. Our next Board of Education regular business meeting and annual budget adoption meeting will be held next Thursday, April 22nd at 7 p.m. You got a motion?
Motion. Oh, well done, Mr. Zachary. Second.
All right, thank you very much.